Hello, it's me Bunting with lesson 2, part 2 of the visual functional maths for entry level 3. And the topic we're dealing with is measuring in part 2. Today's lesson is on time. During this lesson, we will deal with units of time, the 12-hour clock and the 24-hour clock, how to read time in digital and analog clocks, working out length of time, reading and understanding timetables, and reading calendars. You remember I told you that every new topic we're dealing with, it's important that we think about the meaning of keywords we'll be using. And for today, we need to think carefully about the meaning of time, analog, digital, timetable, and calendar. What is time? Time has lots of different units, and you need to be able to use lots of different units for time. You also need to be able to change between them. Here are how some of the units of time are related. 60 seconds is 1 minute, 60 minutes is 1 hour, 24 hours is 1 day, 7 days is 1 week, 365 days is 1 year, 12 months is 1 year, 10 years is 1 decade, and 100 years is a century. At the bottom of the screen you'll see further tables about time. 15 minutes is a quarter of an hour, 30 minutes is half an hour, and 45 minutes is 3/4 of an hour. Those measurements measure the face of the clock in terms of an hour. Okay, let's go further and look at two questions. How many seconds are there in 2 minutes? There are 60 seconds in 1 minute, that we know. So, to find out how many seconds there are in 2 minutes, what do we need to do? We need to multiply by 60 because 60 seconds is equal to 1 minute. So 60 times 2 is 120 seconds. This sounds familiar if you are an athletics fan or training, or if you like to watch speed sports, where speed is measured in terms of minutes. 400 meters is less than 60 minutes. 800 meters is around 2 minutes, possibly less. How many days are there in 48 hours? 1 day is the same as 24 hours. So, to find out how many days there are in 48 hours, you need to divide 48 by 24. And that will give us 2 days. Now you begin to see how we can apply the relationship of different time units. We've got 3 practice questions here. The first one is about converting hours to minutes. And then the second one is about months and years. And the third one is about days and weeks. We know that 7 days make 1 week, so how many will there be in 3 weeks? Again, we have to apply multiplication, sometimes addition, to numbers. You can give time using the 12-hour clock or the 24-hour clock. The 24-hour clock goes from 0000 hours, that is midnight, to 23:59, 1 minute before the next midnight. 0600 is 6 o'clock in the morning, and 1800 is 6 o'clock in the evening. The 12-hour clock goes from 12 a.m. midnight to 11:59 a.m. 1 minute before noon. And then from 12 p.m., which is noon, until 11:59 p.m., 1 minute before midnight. 2 a.m. is 2 o'clock in the morning when most of us are in bed. And 2 p.m. is 2 o'clock in the afternoon when we're all alert, either in school or at work or doing whatever we like to do during the day. So you begin to see that time is not as simple as some of us might think it is. Let's go further. The 12-hour clock and 24-hour clock. You can give time using the 12-hour clock or the 24-hour clock. For times in the afternoon, you need to add 12 hours to go from 12-hour clock to 24-hour clock. Take away 12 hours to go from 24-hour clock to 12-hour clock. Look at the demonstration on the board. The 12-hour clock showing 9:15 p.m. You need to add 12 hours to be able to tell that time in the 24-hour clock, which would be 21:15. Note that I did not use p.m. on the 24-hour clock. Likewise, 21:15, which is on the 24-hour clock, to translate that to a 12-hour clock, you have to subtract 12 hours and you will get 9:15 p.m. You can translate any time from 12 hours to 24 hours and vice versa. I've got some practice questions here which will sort of reinforce your knowledge on the relationship between the two clocks, 12 hours and 24 hours. Change the times below from 24-hour clock to 12-hour clock. A. 10:30, B. 15:35. We just talked about that. Change the times below from 12-hour clock to 24-hour clock. Again, we've just spoken about it. Anthony is meeting a friend at 9 p.m. His watch hits 21:30 as he arrives. Is he late? Remember, 21:30 is a 24-hour clock, so you have to translate that to see whether he is late or on time. A cinema is showing a film at these times: 1855, 1940, 2010, 2040 and 21:25. Sasha gets to the cinema at 8:05. So which of those times will she be able to watch the movie at? Let's look at this. A digital clock displays time using the 24-hour clock. 8:23 is equal to 8:23 a.m. 11:59 equals 11:59 a.m. And then 23:47 is 11:47 p.m. An analog clock displays time using the 12-hour clock. Let's see how we can read it. The small hand shows the hour, which is 10, and then the big, or what we call the long hand, shows how many minutes past the hour. It points to 12 on the hour and 0 minutes past the hour. Every gap is another 5 minutes. So when you're looking at the long or the big hand, from 12 you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and arrive at 1, which is 5 minutes past. And then from 1 you count another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 2, which is 10 minutes past. And then you count another 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is 15 minutes past. So when the big hand is pointing to 3, all you have to do is start from 12 and count in 5. 5, 10, 15, or 5 times 3 to get 15 minutes past 10 o'clock. More examples of time on an analog clock. Let's look at it clockwise from left to right. At 2 o'clock, or 200 hours, the small hand is at 2, the big hand is at 12. Remember, the big hand moves from one number to another in multiples of 5 minutes. At 2:15 or quarter past 2, the small hand is just about 2 and the big hand is at 3. Again, 5, 10, 15 or 3 times 5. At 2:30 or half past 2, the small hand is halfway between 2 and 3 because it's moving forward. And the big hand is at 6. Again, 5 times 6 is 30, which is half past. And then finally, at 2:45 or quarter to 3, the small hand is just between 3 and 2, or just before 3, and the big hand is at 9. So if we multiply 9 by 5 minutes, you'll have 45 minutes. We can count it from 12 to 9, which is 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45 minutes. So once you know how to tell your time by calculating from 12 onwards clockwise with the big hand and using the minute strokes, not the numbers but the minute strokes, you should get it right, because each number is 5 minutes in between. We continue with reading time from an analog clock. Here is an example. Vicky wakes up in the morning and looks at her clock. It's showing 10 minutes after 8 o'clock. She will be late for work if she wakes up after 8:15. Will Vicky be late for work? Consider the fact that she doesn't have to travel far for work. No, she won't. How did I know? The small hand is just after 8, but before 9, so it's not 9 o'clock yet. And the big hand is at 2, so it's 2 times 5. Remember, 5 minutes in between each number, which is equal to 10 minutes. So the time is actually 10 minutes after 8. And if she has to be at work at 8:15, then it means that she will not be late for work. Working out lengths of time. Remember I told you that time is how long it takes to perform a process or for something to happen. And we measure that time in minutes and hours, or in hours and minutes. Let's look at this example. Nisha set off on a bike ride at 10:30 a.m. and had a break at 12:25 a.m. How long had she been riding for? You have to break the time into sections, and usually, depending on the length of time, you can break it down into hours, minutes, and so on. Now let's look at this. So starting point is 10:30 a.m. So 10:30 a.m. to 11 o'clock is 30 minutes. And then from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. is an hour. And then from 12 p.m. to 12:25 is 25 minutes. And then all we have to do is to add the minutes and then add them to the 1 hour, which will give us 1 hour and 55 minutes, which is the time she has been riding for. You may need to work out what time something will happen. For example, when something will start or finish. The best way to do this is to split time into chunks. If we look at the example, the time is 12:30 p.m. and Pete had a meeting in 45 minutes. What time does the meeting start? The time now is 12:30. So again, you split it in chunks. You'll observe that the time is split into either 30 minutes, sometimes an hour, sometimes 15 minutes. If you split it into 5 or 10 minutes chunks, it will be a little bit untidy, except if within the time frame it's relevant. So let's look at this. 12:30 to 1 is 30 minutes. And then 1 p.m. to 1:15 is 15 minutes because he has a meeting in 45 minutes. So Pete's meeting starts at 1:15 p.m. We'll look at example 2. Diane is going to watch a film at the cinema. The film lasts for 1 hour and 30 minutes. During the film, there will be a 15 minutes break. If the film starts at 7:30 p.m., what time will it finish? Maybe she has to go somewhere else after that, so she needs to know what time the movie will finish so that she will not be late, or maybe she has ordered a taxi to pick her up. So let's look at it. 7:30 to 8:30 is 1 hour, and then 8:30 to 9 o'clock is 30 minutes. But that's not all, because there's a 15-minute break in between the movie. So add that 15 minutes to the 1 hour and 30 minutes, and then you'll find out that the total time she spent at the cinema would be 1 hour and 45 minutes. Take that away, or add that to the time the movie starts. The film will finish at 9:15 p.m. Here are some practice questions. Again, remember I told you that when you're answering questions, before you do that, make notes of key words. Read the question carefully and try to understand what you're asked to do. In the following set of questions, questions 1 or 2 are pretty straightforward, in which you have to calculate how long something will take to happen. Questions 3, 4, and 5 are a little bit more wordy, so you need to read them carefully and get your pen, underline keywords. An electricity company are planning a power cut. They will switch the power off at 5:15 and turn it back on at 9:30. How long will the power be cut off for? I know that I will need to know, because if I have stuff in the fridge that can go bad, that needs to be kept at a certain temperature, and I'm expecting some power cut, I'll need to know how long the power cut will be for. Look at question 4 again. Ben is going to a friend's house. His journey involves a half-hour bus ride and then 10-minute walk. If he gets off the bus at 6 o'clock p.m., what time will he arrive? And then lastly, Gary sets off for the gym at 8:55. It takes him 20 minutes to walk there. If he stays at the gym until it closes at 2100 hours, how long will Gary have spent in the gym? So these are all very practical questions which probably happen to you and I almost every day. And it's so easy to take time for granted, but then when you have to calculate it and give some sensible answers, you have to think very carefully about it. Let's look at timetables. Timetables have columns and rows. You need to know how it's laid out first of all. That will help you to understand and to be able to read it. As you get on and on in your education in maths, you will find out that a table layout is one of the most important and useful layout you can use when you want to read and understand information. So timetables have columns and rows. Columns are the strips that go up and down. Rows are the strips that go across. There are lots of different types of timetables. The best way to learn how to use them is to practice. Can you think of any timetable you know? The obvious one is when you're at school, you have your school timetable for lessons. Lessons, how long a lesson will last? How long do you have before you go to lunch? I know I used to love my food. And then how long is the lunch for? Because I need to have my lunch and then maybe play some football or go to the music room and play some music. And then sometimes if you have to travel by train, you will have to find out what the train timetable is. When is the train arriving? How long will the journey take? All of that kind of information is available on the timetable. So you need to understand how to use it. Let's look at an example here. The timetable on the next slide shows train times. What time would you need to leave Preston to get to Deansgate for 12:30? If you look at the timetable, remember you look across the rows and then the columns. So you have a list of Preston, Buckshot Parkway, Bolton and Deansgate on the left, and then on each of their rows you see different times. You have 10:32 for Preston, 11:02, 11:33 and 12:02. And then at the bottom there you see Deansgate. It's 11:27, 12:07, and then the iron circles 12:29 and then 13:07. If you look at the notes at the bottom, you need to find Deansgate on the timetable, which is at the bottom. You need to follow the row until you reach the last time before 12:30. It's 12:29, so that's when you should be there. If you're there any late, if you're there after that, the next train to arrive there will be 13:07, so you'll be late for whatever you want to go for. Okay, then once you follow the row up to 12:29, the next thing you need to do is to go up the column until you reach to Preston. This is the leaving time from Preston, which is 11:33. So you'll need to leave Preston at 11:33. So catch the 11:33 train to Deansgate. Let's look at example 2. This is a little bit of a brain teaser. The timetable for a country show is shown below. And the show is obviously at weekends, Saturday and Sunday. At the top there you see the column headers. And then on the left you see the times for each show. There are 5 shows each day. And then you see the description of the shows. On Saturday you have livestock show, woodland walk, butchery class, lawn mowing or lawnmower race, and then brass band contest. And then on Sunday you have bakery judging, tractor show, birds of prey show, sheep shearing, and celebrity chefs. Look at the 3 notes. What time does the tractor show starts? You need to find that information. The answer is 11 a.m. and it's on a Sunday. On which day is the butchery class? The answer is Saturday. And then, when is the bird of prey show? The answer is at 1:30 p.m. on a Sunday. That will be the 3rd show on a Sunday, which happens at 1:30. Here are some practice questions. Debbie wants to travel by train from St. David's to Topsham. A. If she wants to get there by 7:30, which train should she catch? B. She now needs to be there by 7:15 instead. Can she catch the same train from St. David's? So you need to be very careful about that. Here's another practice question. Liam is going on a 1-day training course. His timetable for the day is shown below. On the right, you see the time, you see the activities. A. What time does reptile care start? How long is large animal care? Which is longer, morning break or afternoon break? Again, you have to apply all of these knowledge you've learned about time when you're doing this exercise. Let's look at calendar dates. Calendars show all of the days, weeks and months in a year. A calendar for the month of October is shown below. You can see that the first day in October is on a Wednesday, And there is what we usually call a 5-week month, and it ends on the 31st of October on a Friday. You might be asked questions where you need to look at calendars and work out days. This looks a little bit complicated when you look at it, but if you start applying the knowledge you have, you'll find that it's not that difficult. In May, you have Monday to Sunday, and then the first day in May is the 1st on a Wednesday right up to Friday the 31st. And the weekends are Saturdays and Sundays. Now, Karen wants to go on a holiday with her sister Ruth for a weekend in May, but they only have particular days they are free, or particular weeks they are free. Karen cannot go between the 1st and the 8th of May, and Ruth can't go between the 25th and the 31st of May. So, how do we find out when they can go? You need to study the calendar. And they also need to find the cheapest holiday package they can get. So first of all, you cross out any dates when the sisters can't go. You have the information at the top there. Next, you look for a weekend where both sisters are available, and then you compare the prices. In this case, it's the weekend in the 7th to the 12th or the 18th to the 19th. And the prices there on a Saturday is £142 or £112. So obviously the cheapest will be on the weekend of the 18th and 19th of May. Let's look at some practice questions now. Let's look at the following 5 points. Chidi wants to book a driving test. The driving test costs £62 on weekdays and £75 on Saturday. That means that the center is not open on Sundays. Chidi works Tuesday to Friday every week, so he can't do the test on those days. Any other day is okay, but remember, he cannot do the test on a Sunday because the center is not open. So you have 2 points here. The last possible test he can take in May, and you also need to know the cheapest test in May at the first possible date. So you need to write down the date and cost of the driving test if Chidi books. And the information are as follows. The last possible test you can take in May and the cheapest test in May at the first possible date. So study that and give your answers. What have we learned? We have learned the units of measuring time. How to read time on analog, that is 12-hour clock, and digital, that is 24-hour clock. We have learned that time is measured from seconds to century. We have learned how to work out lengths of time, how to read and use timetables, and how to read calendars. Remember, work at your pace. Get the video, store it,